Good morning. My name is William Penniman. I live at 2007 Upper Lake Drive, Reston, Virginia. Thank you. By way of background, I've practiced law in the energy area since 1975. Over the course of very many years, I've probably worked for every sector of the energy industry in either regulatory proceedings or transactions or somewhere. That's not why I'm here today. I'm not here on anyone's paycheck. I'm here for one reason, and that's because of my family. I have a wife, children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, grandnieces, and nephews, and they're the ones who are going to pay the consequences of the path charted in Dominion's IRP. While I'm a ratepayer, I care about more than just a few cents on my daily bill, my monthly bill, a few dollars a year. Much more important to me are the consequences we leave for our children and grandchildren. We have the consequences are building, and I'm confident that other ratepayers with families, which are most of them, have a similar view. We all save money for our children. We set money aside for our children. We do everything we can. If all we cared about was money, we wouldn't have children. It's a lot cheaper without it. But we do care. And we do not view them as externalities. We do not view them as the appropriate bearers of the collateral damage we do by continuing to emit greenhouse gases. Climate change is real. It's already occurring. It's visible in the things we see. Local weather may change, but it is occurring. In the last month, in which global temperatures were below the 20th century average, was 29 years ago. It's been 348 consecutive months of temperatures above the 20th century average. That tells you something. Oceans are acidifying. Wildfires are much more potent than they've ever been in U.S. history. The consequences to agriculture, to fishermen, to our coastal areas are all profound and getting worse. The real problem is the greenhouse gases don't just go away. We can't say we'll do it for another 15 years and then we'll stop and that'll take care of it. The reality is that greenhouse gases are persistent. Much of the carbon dioxide emitted in 1850, when carbon dioxide was identified as a greenhouse gas, are still in the atmosphere today. Something like 15 to 40% of what we emit today is likely still to be in the atmosphere 1,000 years from now. It's like applying a layer of paint every year and waiting for it to wear off. It doesn't. It fades from the system. You put in 100 units at 1 year, and a half a unit comes out the next, but you put in another 100 units. It keeps adding up. And the more we do that, the more profound the consequences will be for our children. And we ratepayers care about our children. By the way, I did submit written comments, 5 pages of written comments. They have more detail with citations to various studies, including the Governor's Climate Commission, whose final report was issued in 2008, which reviewed much of this and confirmed the substantial consequences if we do not address the emissions from power plants and other sources. Power plants are your job, so that's why I'm here for you. Against this, oh, by the way, the most recent thing from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the international organization with representatives of scientists from all over the world, gives us roughly 15 years to start bringing down our CO2. If we don't, then it may be too late to do it, or it just drives up the cost humongously for those of us still alive and for our children who we trust will be. Against this, we have an IRP that is built upon 6 cases, 5 of which dramatically increase CO2 emissions over the next 15 years. The base case would increase CO2 emissions by Dominion by 37%. The diversity plan would increase by 23%, as would approximately all the others, except for the climate action plan, which by the end of the 15 years is back to where we are today. It still doesn't bring it down, which we need to start doing, but at least it doesn't make it substantially worse than we're at today. It's critically important that we bend the curve toward what's in the climate action plan. And my recommendation is that you reject the IRP as filed and direct Dominion either to pursue the climate action plan or come back with other proposals that have a better balance of resources or alternative balances of resources to still achieve that objective. In making those comments, I'll point out some of the significant implications. It is clear we can address greenhouse gases through energy efficiency and through renewable energy. It is certainly possible. Nuclear is a possibility. Nuclear carries its own risks. That is a component of the climate action plan. And I'll defer debates on those risks to some other proceeding. But it is clear we have it within our power to bring down greenhouse gas emissions by Dominion. Just as an example, if you were to fully implement that 10% reduction through energy efficiency, which was a goal established by the legislature, which I believe this commission has previously indicated is a viable and achievable target. The difference between what Dominion is planning in the IRP and that 10% goal would have between now and 2022 would cost the citizen, the ratepayers, purchase or production of an extra 20,000 gigawatt hours of electricity. That would all be avoided if they implemented the 10% as originally contemplated. They put that in greenhouse gas terms, that's very substantial. In rate terms, you could avoid, even if you make an assumption, a modest assumption about the cost per megawatt hour of purchasing power or generating it, let's say $40 a megawatt hour, that would be $800 million just between now and 2022. And if they don't get to that target, then there's another potentially 19,000 gigawatt hours over the remainder of this 15-year plan of unnecessarily generated electricity, unnecessarily produced greenhouse gases. Those are profound. Now, why has Dominion done this? I don't want to characterize Dominion as an evil institution. I suspect that apart from their own profit motives, which they'll have regardless, they are trying to achieve what they think you want. And if the base case is the cheapest possible, and they think you want the cheapest possible regardless of the consequences, that's what they'll produce. But I hope that isn't what you want. Under the statute governing IRPs, one of the things you're supposed to look at is the state's energy policy. And the state's energy policy calls for, among other things within your jurisdiction, promoting renewable energy sources, promoting energy efficiency, and reducing greenhouse gases. That's in the law. It's within your power and should be major objectives that you pursue in implementing the IRP and in reviewing Dominion's proposal. From a cost standpoint, well, once again, I'm frustrated by the lack of access to the assumed future prices for natural gas, power purchases, generated cost of electricity. Had I had those, I could give you a fairly accurate estimate of the rate impact from adopting, say, the climate action plan versus the others. I can make guesses. If you assume the current rate for residential customers, which they advertise as 10.7 cents per kilowatt hour, then you could achieve the climate action plan for a modest increase in monthly and annual rates. Well worth it to those of us with children and those of us concerned about the future of the Commonwealth. So, in that regard, I would add that I do support the ruling of the hearing examiner because I have had frustration. I know from experience.
Peter, we're not here to do oral argument on the
That's fine.
motions. Could you
Sure.
wrap up your...
Certainly.
Yeah.
So I would refer you again to my submitted written comments. They were served on the parties. If I have extra copies, if that would be helpful, but they were filed and I believe distributed. And so I would request that you read them and request that you pursue a policy that bends the curve down on greenhouse gases, not allows it to continue up. Thank you very much.
And yes, we have the comments that you submitted are certainly in the record. Yes. Any cross from Mr. Penman? Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Penman.